Captain Veltar stared at the empty screen showing nothing but static from New Denver. He had made this trade run 17 times before and always received immediate contact from the human colony's traffic control. The massive planet hung before his ship like a blue and green jewel, its orbital stations clearly visible and powered up, but no voices came through the communication system. "Try again," Veltar told his communications officer. The young Zephyrian named Kixal worked the controls, with growing concern on his face. "Still nothing, Captain. All the automated beacons are working fine, but no personal responses from anyone." Veltar's ship, Wandering Star, had carried medical supplies and rare minerals to trade with the humans of New Denver for almost 2 years. The humans were good trading partners who always paid fair prices and never caused trouble. They were also punctual people who answered calls within minutes of arrival. This silence felt wrong. "Take us to the main orbital station," Veltar ordered. His pilot Nixel guided their ship toward the large spinning structure that served as the planet's primary dock. As they approached, the automated systems worked perfectly. Docking bay doors opened on schedule and guidance beams locked onto their ship, but still no human voices welcomed them. The docking bay looked normal when they landed. Cargo loaders moved supplies around and maintenance robots continued their tasks, but Veltar saw no human workers anywhere. He put on his environment suit and stepped onto the station with 2 of his crew members. The air felt fine and all the systems hummed with activity, yet the place seemed completely empty of human life. "Hello," Veltar called out in the human language he had learned for trading. His voice echoed through the empty corridors. "Anyone here?" The only answer came from a helpful computer voice that said, "Welcome to New Denver Orbital Station. Please proceed to Customs Desk for processing." They walked to the customs area and found it fully functional. Scanning devices checked their credentials automatically and cleared them for planetary access, but no human customs officer appeared to greet them. The computer system seemed to run everything without any human oversight. Dr. Keshelin joined them from the ship. She was their xenobiologist and had studied many different species during her career. "This is very strange," she said while examining the area with her instruments. "I detect no signs of struggle or violence. No blood, no damage, no indication that anyone was forced to leave quickly." Veltar made the decision to go down to the planet's surface. Their shuttle landed at the main spaceport of New Denver City, a bustling human settlement that usually had over 6 million inhabitants. The landing was smooth and automated, but again, no human controllers guided them down. The spaceport looked exactly as it should. Ground vehicles sat parked in neat rows, cargo containers waited for loading, and all the equipment functioned normally. But not a single human could be seen anywhere. Veltar and his team walked through the terminal building and found it completely empty of people. "Look at this," Keshelin called from a nearby restaurant. She stood beside a table where a meal sat, half finished. The food was 3 days old based on her analysis, but it looked like someone had simply stopped eating in the middle of their lunch and walked away. They explored more of the city and found the same pattern everywhere. Homes with doors left open, personal items scattered about as if people had been in the middle of normal activities, and vehicles parked randomly in streets. In one house they found children's toys on the floor and a game that seemed to have been abandoned mid-play. Nick single quotes L discovered something even more puzzling at the city's main power plant. "The facility is running at full capacity," he reported, over their communication devices. "All the systems are automated and working perfectly. The computers show that power consumption is at normal levels for a city of 6 million people, but we haven't seen a single human." Dr. Keshelin took biological readings throughout the city. "I'm finding no human DNA traces newer than 3 days old," she told the team. "It's as if every human on this planet simply vanished at the same moment 3 days ago." The team tried to access human computer networks for information, but found limited success. The AI systems were polite and helpful, but claimed to have no knowledge of where their human operators had gone. When asked about the population, The computer simply said, "Current user access level insufficient for personnel tracking data, Veltar." Sent urgent messages to other trade ships in the area. The responses that came back made his blood cold. Every human colony, space station, and ship across their entire territory had gone silent at exactly the same time 3 days ago. No distress calls, no evacuation notices, no explanation of any. Captain Morris of the Helium freighter Star Merchant reported the same findings from the human mining world of Copper Falls. 600,000 humans just gone, Morris said over the communication link. All their equipment still running, all their projects still on schedule, but not a single person anywhere. The situation became more disturbing when Veltar tried to enter restricted areas of the city. The human security systems politely but firmly denied access to government buildings, military facilities, and research centers. The automated defenses weren't hostile, but they clearly distinguished between humans and other species. Without human authorization, most of the colony remained off dash limits. Dr. Keshalan made another discovery at the city's medical center. The hospital records show normal patient visits up until 3 days ago, then nothing, she reported. But here's what's really strange. All the patients who were being treated for serious conditions show complete medical records with treatments that should have taken weeks or months to complete. It's as if their care was somehow finished instantly as evening fell on New Denver. The city's lights came on automatically. Street lamps illuminated empty sidewalks, house windows glowed with no one inside, and the orbital stations continued their work above a planet that had somehow lost its entire human population in a single moment. Veltar stood in the central plaza of New Denver City, surrounded by the evidence of a thriving civilization that had simply stepped out of existence. The silence was absolute except for the quiet hum of machinery continuing its tasks without operators. No birds sang because humans had never brought Earthbirds to this world. No wind blew because the weather control systems maintained perfect. The captain realized he was witnessing something that had never happened before in galactic history. An entire species had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a perfectly functional civilization with no one to run it. The mystery of where humanity had gone would soon become the most important question in the galaxy. But standing in that empty plaza, Veltar could only wonder if they would ever return. Council investigator Prime Hadian arrived at New Denver 5 days after Captain Veltar first reported the human disappearance. His massive ship Truthseeker carried specialists from 12 different species, each hoping to solve the mystery that had shaken the entire galaxy. The loss of humanity meant the loss of one of the most advanced civilizations known to exist. Dr. Nixara stepped off the transport shuttle with her temporal physics equipment. She was a tall, thin being from the crystalline worlds who specialized in studying time distortions and dimensional anomalies. Her instruments could detect if humans had been moved through time or space by some unknown technology. Commander Stort followed with his military analysis team. The broad-shouldered Helian warrior had fought in 3 galactic conflicts and understood both strategy and technology better than most. His job was to determine if the human disappearance might be connected to some kind of weapon or attack. Ambassador Quill came last, moving slowly on her 6 legs while carrying diplomatic files. The insect-like Verdanian was known throughout the galaxy for her ability to understand different cultures and solve complex social problems. She hoped to find clues about why humans might have chosen to leave voluntarily. Investigator Hadian established a research base in the empty human government building at the center of New Denver City. The building's AI systems welcomed them politely and provided office space, but refused access to classified areas without proper human authorization codes that no longer existed. "Begin with the timeline," Hadian told his team during their first meeting. "We need to understand exactly when and how this happened." Dr. Nixara connected her equipment to the human computer networks. The results puzzled her immediately. All human biological signatures simply end at exactly the same moment across every world, she reported. No fade-out, no gradual decrease, just an instant cutoff at 14:27 Galactic Standard Time 3 days ago. Commander Stort reviewed security footage from around the colony. The recordings showed humans going about normal daily activities until 1427, then the cameras recorded empty spaces with no humans visible. Personal belongings remained where they had been dropped, but the people carrying them were simply gone. There's no evidence of teleportation technology, Stort said while studying the data. No energy signatures, no dimensional rifts, no transportation device activation. Whatever took them left no trace of the method used, Ambassador Quill interviewed the few non-human residents who had lived on New Denver. A Zephyrian merchant named Kelvin told her that his human neighbors seemed completely normal on the morning they disappeared. Jake and Lisa were working in their garden, he said. Their daughter Emma was playing with my son. Nothing seemed unusual or wrong. The investigation team discovered that human technology was far more advanced than other species had realized. Their power generators used principles that Dr. Nixara couldn't understand, even with her advanced physics knowledge. The energy came from somewhere that her instruments couldn't detect or measure. Look at this, Dr. Nixara called to the others while examining a human computer core. These processing units operate in 11 dimensions simultaneously. My people have only discovered 7 dimensions total, but humans were using 4 more. That we didn't even know existed. Commander Stort found similar mysteries in human military installations. The defensive systems used weapons technology that operated on completely unknown principles. I can't even begin to understand how their shield generators work, he admitted. The energy patterns make no sense according to any physics I know. The team's biggest frustration came from the human AI systems themselves. The computers were helpful and polite, but they seemed programmed to prevent deep analysis of human technology. Every time the investigators tried to access core systems, they received the same message: authorization level insufficient. Please contact your human administrator. Ambassador Quill made progress by studying human cultural records instead of their technology. She found something strange in the colony's social data. Human crime rates dropped to almost zero over the past 50 years, she reported. Not just violent crime, but all crime. Theft, fraud, even minor violations became extremely rare. Dr. Nixara discovered another puzzle in the human medical records. Disease rates among humans declined dramatically over the past century, she said. Not just because of better medicine, but because they seemed to develop natural immunity to illnesses that should have affected them. The investigation revealed that humans had been quietly solving problems throughout the galaxy for decades. Commander Stort found records of human ships appearing near disaster sites just before catastrophes occurred. They always claimed to be conducting routine surveys, he said. But they showed up at exactly the right place and time to help with evacuations or provide aid. Ambassador Quill uncovered evidence that humans had been sharing technology anonymously with other species. Advanced medical treatments improved. Agricultural techniques and better manufacturing processes had all appeared throughout the galaxy with no clear origin. The timing matches human research projects, she explained. But they never took credit for any of these breakthroughs. Dr. Nixara's temporal analysis revealed something that disturbed the entire team. Human technology shows signs of development. That should have taken thousands of years, she said. But their historical records only go back about 300 years since they arrived in this galaxy. Either they developed impossibly fast, or they brought advanced knowledge from somewhere else. The team discovered that human space exploration had been far more extensive than anyone knew. Deep space monitoring stations operated in remote areas of the galaxy, watching for asteroids, cosmic storms, and other threats. These stations continued their work automatically, but without human oversight they would eventually fail. Commander Stort found the most disturbing evidence in human military files that he managed to access. They had detailed plans for preventing every major conflict that could threaten galactic stability, he reported. Not plans for winning wars, but plans for stopping them before they started. They knew about tensions between species before those species knew about them themselves. The investigation team realized that humanity hadn't just been another member of the galactic community. They had been its secret protectors working behind the scenes to prevent disasters and guide other species toward peace and prosperity. The scope of their hidden influence became clear as the team uncovered project after project designed to help other civilizations. As their second week on New Denver ended, the investigation team faced a troubling conclusion. Humanity had possessed knowledge and technology far beyond what they had shared with other species. They had used this advantage not for conquest or domination, but for protection and guidance. Now they were gone, and the galaxy was beginning to realize how much it had depended on guardians it never knew existed. The silence that had seemed merely mysterious when Captain Veltar first discovered it now felt ominous. Without human protection, the galaxy might face dangers it wasn't prepared to handle alone. News of humanity's disappearance spread through the galaxy like wildfire, causing panic and chaos on hundreds of worlds. The Corvan Empire was the first to act, sending warships toward human territory within hours of receiving the reports. Emperor Draconus declared that empty human worlds belonged to whoever could claim them first, the Stellar Federation responded by mobilizing their own fleets to protect human space from Corvan expansion. Admiral Rexton announced that humanity's colonies should be preserved until their owners returned, but his ships moved to secure strategic human worlds just like the Corvans were doing on New Denver. Ambassador Quill watched the situation develop. With growing alarm, 3 major powers are about to start a war over empty planets, she told Investigator Hadian. They don't understand that human technology won't work for them anyway. The first conflicts began when Corvan ships tried to land on the human mining world of Copper Falls, the automated defense systems that had politely welcomed investigation. TEAMS now showed their true capabilities. Corvan warships found themselves trapped by tractor beams they couldn't break while warning messages played in perfect Corvan language. "This is human territory," the automated systems announced. "Unauthorized military vessels must withdraw immediately or face defensive action." The Corvan fleet commander ordered his ships to fire on the defense platforms, but their weapons had no effect. The human shields absorbed every blast without even flickering. Pirates and scavengers also rushed toward human space, hoping to steal valuable technology before the major powers could stop them. The criminal boss Vexcar led a fleet of 30 ships toward New Denver, planning to strip the planet of everything valuable. Dr. Nixara was working in the Human Research Center when the pirate fleet arrived. She watched from the observation deck as the automated orbital defenses activated. Beautiful blue energy fields surrounded each pirate ship, holding them motionless in space while scanning beams analyzed their intentions. Criminal intent detected, the defense system announced across all communication channels. Initiating protective protocols, the pirate ships found themselves gently but firmly escorted to the edge of the star system and released with warnings not to return. Back on New Denver, Ambassador Quill made a discovery that changed everything. The investigation team thought they knew about recent galactic history. While searching through human archives, she found records that didn't match what other species remembered about their own past. "Look at this," she called to the others, pointing at a file on her screen. Human records show that the Helian colony ship crisis happened differently than Commander Stort's people remember it. Commander Stort examined the documents with confusion. According to his species history, the Helian colony ships had developed revolutionary new engines just in time to escape their dying homeworld. But human records showed something else entirely. These files indicate that human engineers secretly provided the engine designs, Stort said slowly. "My people think we invented the technology ourselves, but humans were guiding our scientists the whole time." Dr. Nixara found similar discrepancies in records about her own people. "The crystalline plague that nearly destroyed my homeworld," she said. "We always believed the cure came from our own research, but human files show they developed the treatment and somehow made our scientists think they had discovered it." The investigation team began searching for more examples and found them everywhere. The gravitational stabilizers that prevented the Verdanian homeworld from falling into its sun had been anonymously donated by humans. The agricultural techniques that ended famine on 12 different worlds had all originated from human research. Stations. Ambassador Quill discovered the most shocking truth while reading personal logs from human scientists. They were watching every species in the galaxy, she reported. Not spying for conquest, but monitoring for problems they could help solve. They prevented wars by sharing technology with both sides before conflicts could start. The evidence showed that humans had been secretly preventing disasters for over 2 centuries. They had stopped asteroid impacts by quietly deflecting dangerous rocks. They had ended plagues by developing cures and making sure the right scientists found them. They had prevented wars by solving the resource shortages that caused most conflicts. Dr. Nixara found records of human ships appearing near her homeworld just before solar storms that would have destroyed their cities. My people thought we were lucky that the storms missed us, she said. But humans were using weather control satellites to redirect them away from populated areas. Commander Stort discovered that several wars his people remembered winning had actually been prevented entirely by human intervention, the resource. Conflicts that should have happened never occurred because humans secretly provided alternative supplies, he realized. We thought we were being diplomatic, but humans were making diplomacy possible. The scope of human protection became clear as the investigation continued. Every major species in the galaxy had been helped by humans at critical moments in their development. Not just once or twice, but repeatedly over decades and centuries. Ambassador Quill found the most disturbing evidence in human psychological profiles of other species. They understood us better than we understand ourselves, she told the team. These files predict exactly how each species would react to different situations, and humans planned their interventions accordingly. The files showed that humans had prevented 3 potential galactic wars by carefully managing tensions between aggressive species. They had stopped 2 potential genocides by providing the technology needed for peaceful solutions. They had even prevented several species from accidentally destroying themselves with their own weapons. As word of these discoveries spread, panic gripped the galaxy. Without human protection, old conflicts began to resurface. The Corvan Empire and Stellar Federation moved closer to open war over human territory. Resource shortages that humans had secretly managed began causing tensions between former allies. Dr. Nixara received reports from her homeworld that the solar storm prediction systems were failing. The human satellites that protected us are starting to shut down, she said. Without maintenance, we'll be vulnerable to cosmic disasters again. Commander Stort got similar news from Helion space. The shipping routes that humans secretly maintained are becoming dangerous, he reported. Pirate attacks are increasing because the hidden security systems are going offline. The investigation team realized they were watching the beginning of galactic collapse. For centuries, humanity had been the invisible foundation that kept civilization stable. Now that foundation was cracking and everything built on top of it was starting to fall, Ambassador Quill stood in the empty human council chambers, looking at the seats where human delegates had sat during galactic meetings. She now understood that those delegates had known about every crisis before it happened, every conflict before it started, every disaster before it struck. The silence that had begun as a mystery was becoming a catastrophe without humanity's hidden guidance. The galaxy was starting to tear itself apart. 6 months after humanity vanished, the galaxy was falling apart. The war between the Corvan Empire and the Stellar Federation had spread to include the hegemony of distant suns, turning what started as a dispute over empty human worlds into a 3-way conflict that threatened to consume entire star systems. On New Denver, the investigation team watched their first human system failure with growing dread. Dr. Nixara was monitoring the planetary weather control network when alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The massive computers that maintained New Denver's perfect climate displayed a simple but terrifying message. Primary authorization required for continued operation, the system announced in its calm human voice. Please authenticate human administrator. Credentials within 72 hours or automatic shutdown will commence. Dr. Keshelin tried every access code the team had discovered, but nothing worked. The weather control system had been designed to operate only under human supervision, and, without that supervision, it was preparing to shut down permanently. What happens if the weather control fails? Ambassador Quill asked while studying the system specifications. The answer made everyone in the room go silent. Without the network, New Denver would experience temperature swings of over 60 degrees, massive storms, and atmospheric pressure changes that would make the planet uninhabitable within a year. Commander Stort received equally disturbing reports from across human space. Navigation systems that guided ships through dangerous asteroid fields were shutting down one by one. Trade routes that had been safe for centuries were becoming death traps as human safety protocols went offline. The war in human territory grew. Worse, when the Corvan fleet tried to force their way past the automated defenses around New Terra, the human defense platforms had remained polite but firm for months. But something changed when Corvan ships began attacking civilian vessels trying to evacuate the area. Captain Veltar was delivering emergency supplies to refugees when he witnessed the human defenses activate their combat protocols for the first time. The automated systems that had gently escorted away pirates now showed their true military power. Corvan warships found themselves disabled by weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Threat to civilian populations detected, the defense network announced across all frequencies. Initiating maximum defensive response. The Corvan fleet was not destroyed, but every ship was left powerless and drifting, their crews unharmed, but their vessels completely helpless. Dr. Nixara made her most important discovery while exploring the underground levels of New Denver's research complex. Behind a door that had finally opened after months of trying different access codes, she found a facility that contained the answers to humanity's greatest mystery. The hidden laboratory stretched for kilometers beneath the planet's surface, filled with technology that made the surface installations look primitive. Star charts covered the walls showing routes between galaxies, and the central computer core was larger than most space stations. "This isn't just a research facility," Dr. Nixara told the others over her communication device. "It's a galactic monitoring station. They were watching everything that happened in our galaxy from here." Dr. Keshelin joined her in the underground complex and found records that changed everything they thought they knew about human origins. "They weren't from this galaxy originally," she said while reading files that dated back over 300 years. "The star charts show their journey from somewhere so far away that our best telescopes couldn't see it. The files told the story of humanity's arrival in their galaxy and their decision to become its protectors. They had found dozens of younger species struggling with wars, diseases, and natural disasters. Instead of conquering or ruling these species, humans had chosen to help them secretly while remaining hidden. Commander Stort discovered military files that revealed the true scope of human preparation for galactic defense. Every major conflict zone had inactive human installations positioned perfectly to prevent large-scale wars. Deep space monitoring stations tracked asteroid impacts and cosmic storms centuries in advance. "They built a network to protect the entire galaxy," he reported to the team. "Not just from outside threats, but from ourselves. Every time a species came close to destroying itself or others, humans were ready to intervene the investigation." Team found records of human debates about their role as galactic guardians. Scientists like Dr. Kate Lewis and engineers like Ryan Murphy had argued for decades about whether they should reveal themselves to the species they protected. Ambassador Quill discovered the most painful truth in a message that humans had left specifically for other species to find. The file was titled "For Our Students" and contained an explanation of why humanity had disappeared so suddenly. "We have been called home," the message began in the careful voice of Dr. Kate Lewis. "After 3 centuries of watching over this galaxy, our own people have found us and asked us to return. We have 72 hours to decide whether to answer that call or remain here forever." The message explained that humanity had been slowly teaching other species to be self-sufficient, hoping that someday they could step back from their protective role. They had planned to reveal themselves gradually and transition their responsibilities to a galactic council of equals. "We had hoped for more time," Ryan Murphy's voice continued the message. "Our analysis shows that most species are not yet ready to handle galactic threats without guidance. But the call from our true home cannot be delayed or ignored." The final part of the message was addressed directly to the investigation team that humans had somehow known would eventually find it. "To those who discover this record, know that our departure was not abandonment. We leave hoping that our students have learned enough to protect themselves and each other." Dr. Nixara found technical specifications that showed how humanity had planned to gradually transfer their protective systems to other species. The weather control networks, defense platforms, and monitoring stations were all designed to eventually operate under joint galactic control rather than human authority alone. "They were trying to teach us to take care of ourselves," she realized. "But they ran out of time before we were ready." The underground facility contained one more surprise that gave the team hope. Hidden in the deepest levels, they found a communication array pointed toward the edge of the galaxy. The system was still active, sending automated signals toward the dark space between galaxies where humanity had originally come from. Commander Stort examined the communication logs and found that the array had been sending regular updates about galactic conditions to humanity's distant homeworld. "They're still watching us," he said. "Even after leaving, they want to know if we're safe." The war above continued to rage while the investigation team made their discoveries below. But now they understood that humanity's departure had been a choice made with great reluctance, not an abandonment of the species they had protected for so long. The galaxy was struggling without its guardians, but perhaps it was also learning to stand on its own. 2 years had passed since humanity disappeared, and the galaxy had learned to function without its secret guardians, though the price had been enormous. The Great War between the Corvan Empire, Stellar Federation, and hegemony of distant suns had finally ended when all three powers exhausted themselves fighting over human worlds that their automated defenses made impossible to truly claim. Captain Veltar, now Admiral Veltar of the newly formed Galactic Preservation Council, stood in the council chambers on New Denver looking out at representatives from 47 species. The organization had been created from the ashes of the Galactic War, inspired by what they had learned about humanity's protective work. "The crystalline plague outbreak on Nexus 7 has been contained," reported Dr. Nixara, who now served as the Council's chief science officer. "Our new rapid response team arrived within 6 hours, and had the cure distributed in 2 days. It was clumsy and imperfect compared to how humans would have handled the crisis, but they were learning." The Council had spent 2 years reverse engineering human protective systems and trying to fill the void left by their departure. Former enemies now worked together to maintain the stability that humans had provided. Commander Stort led a joint military force that included Corvan, Federation, and hegemony ships working side by side. "The asteroid tracking network is now 60% operational," Stort reported during the weekly briefing. "We've prevented 3 potential impacts that would have devastated populated worlds." The system was nowhere near as sophisticated as the human network had been, but it was saving lives. Ambassador Quill had become the Council's diplomatic coordinator, helping species resolve conflicts before they could escalate into wars. Her success rate was improving, though she often wondered how humans had made peacekeeping look so effortless. The human worlds remained empty monuments to their former inhabitants, tended by automated systems that continued their work despite the absence of their creators. Some systems had shut down permanently when they couldn't authenticate human operators, but others had somehow adapted to accept emergency authorization from the Galactic Preservation Council. New Denver had become the Council's headquarters partly because its weather control system had been the first to accept non-human operators. Dr. Nixara had spent months learning to work with the human computers, and the planetary climate remained stable under her careful management. "The AI systems are teaching us," she had explained to the Council during their first year. "They can't give us full access, but they can guide us toward understanding how their technology works." It was like having patient teachers who could only Communicate through carefully worded hints. Dr. Keshalan maintained research stations on 12 former human worlds, studying the automated systems and learning from their operations. Her work had led to breakthroughs in medicine, agriculture, and disaster prevention that helped the galaxy become more self-sufficient. "We're not replacing human technology," she often said. "We're learning the principles behind it and developing our own solutions." The new galactic medical network could respond to plague outbreaks in days rather than hours, but it was a vast improvement over the months or years such responses had taken before. Many species had begun visiting human worlds like pilgrims visiting shrines. They left gifts and messages of gratitude for guardians they had never known existed. The empty cities became places of reflection where beings from across the galaxy came to understand what had been lost and what needed to be preserved. Ambassador Quill often walked through the empty streets of New Denver City, especially the residential areas where human families had lived normal lives while secretly protecting the galaxy. Children's playgrounds sat unused but maintained by tireless robots that still expected their young users to return someday. The investigation team had found thousands of personal messages that humans had left for specific species throughout the galaxy. Dr. Kate Lewis had recorded a message for the Zephyrian people, thanking them for their friendship and apologizing for leaving without explanation. Ryan Murphy had left technical manuals written specifically for Helian engineers, helping them maintain systems that humans could no longer operate. They spent their final days preparing gifts for us, Ambassador Quill had realized while reading through the messages. Even knowing they might never return, they were still trying to help us succeed without them. The galaxy had learned painful lessons about unity and cooperation through the chaos that followed humanity's departure. Species that had been enemies for generations now worked together because they understood that their survival depended on mutual support rather than competition. Trade routes that had been abandoned when human protection ended were slowly reopening under joint security patrols. Scientific research that had stagnated without human guidance was advancing again as species shared knowledge more freely. The galactic economy was rebuilding itself on principles of cooperation that humans had quietly encouraged for centuries. Dr. Nixara had made it her personal mission to maintain the deep space communication array that humans had used to contact their distant homeworld. Every day she sent status reports about galactic conditions, hoping that somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, humanity was still listening. "The galaxy is learning," she would say into the communication system. "We're not as skilled as you were, but we're trying to protect each other the way you protected us." The array faithfully transmitted her messages into the void. Though no responses ever came back, the most significant change was in how species viewed their relationships with each other. The discovery of humanity's protective work had taught the galaxy that true strength came not from domination, but from lifting others up. Stronger species began helping weaker ones not for conquest or control, but because they understood that everyone's survival was connected. Commander Stort often stood in the empty human military command center, studying the strategic displays that showed threats across the galaxy. "They could have conquered us all easily," he would tell visiting dignitaries. "Instead, they chose to serve us. That's the standard we have to live up to." As the second anniversary of humanity's departure approached, something unprecedented happened. Dr. Nixara was monitoring the deep space communication array when she detected an impossibly faint signal from beyond the galactic rim. The transmission was so weak that it took 3 days to clean up enough to understand the message, 3 words in the human language that few species had bothered to learn before. "We remember you." The message sent ripples of excitement and hope throughout the galaxy. Whether it meant humanity would return someday or was simply a final farewell, no one could determine. But for the first time since the disappearance, the silence didn't feel absolute. Ambassador Quill stood once again in the empty human Capitol building, but this time she wasn't alone. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered to hear the message and discuss what it might mean. The same plaza where she had once contemplated the deafening silence now buzzed with conversation about hope and possibility. The galaxy continued. Without its guardians, scarred but wiser, carrying forward the understanding that civilization's highest calling was to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. In learning that lesson, perhaps humanity had never truly left at all. Their greatest gift wasn't their technology or their protection, but the example they had set for others to follow. And in the continuing work of the Galactic Preservation Council, in the cooperation between former enemies and in the quiet dedication of beings who had learned to care for others as humans had cared for them, humanity's legacy lived on. The silence after their departure had indeed been deafening, but it had taught the galaxy to listen for something more important than words, the call to serve others with the same selfless dedication that humanity had shown for 3 centuries. Whether humans would return remained unknown, but their influence would continue forever in the actions of those they had inspired to become guardians themselves.